Talking Nerdcore, Talking Nerdcore today. We're talking Nerdcore, Talking Nerdcore our way. We're talking Nerdcore, Talking Nerdcore today. We're talking Nerdcore, Talking Nerdcore our way.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Overanalyst here, and on today's episode of Talking Nerdcore, I have on Volcar-OHNO. Is that how you pronounce it? I think I messed that up already.
Volcar-OHNO.
Volcar-OHNO. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Well, I am a nerdcore artist. I rap, I sing. I'm a college student, and I am fun. Let's say fun.
Fun?
Let's
All
say
right.
fun.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
And so today we're going to be talking about DeathNote, because you said that was one of your favorite anime of all time. So why don't you describe it a
Yes.
little bit? What do you like so much about DeathNote?
One of the things that I absolutely love when it comes to DeathNote is a lot of the themes, a lot of the symbolism, and I have to say, the fact that it brought L existence. I love L. Firmly, I've always loved him. I think that, in all seriousness, when it comes to Death Note, the constant back and forth and the mind games, I enjoy that to an extent. I think that it's really cool. I think that it's a gimmick that can be done very poorly, and I feel like Death Note did it very well, but I could be wrong in that.
No, I think you're correct. Death Note is one of the very few anime where I've seen mind games done pretty decently.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why don't we just kind of start talking about what even is Death Note? What is this anime?
Well, okay. The best way that I can even start off to try to, explain what it is, I guess it would be a question of, what do you feel would become of you if you became a sort of Grim Reaper? Because that is essentially what it feels like. There's this kid, and that's another thing that I have to say is, imagine having such a great power and you're just slowly deteriorating. Light Yagami is a wonderful kid. He starts off as a normal kid. He's given this power to write people's names down, and as long as he has their face in mind and he has their real name, he can write it down and they'll die. Within the confines of whatever is actually possible, they will die however he says. And it is one of the it was technically my first anime. That and Angel Beats.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of the concepts that were in Death Note were really underrated. Like, not underrated in the sense of they're not used enough, but I feel like not enough people really realize it, at least now. Some of the stuff that went on, like, for example, Light was a normal kid, but then we see him go from this good guy, good kid, trying to impress everyone, trying to make everyone proud, to having a god complex, and you see him mentally deteriorate, especially from the first time that he kills someone.
Yeah, because it pretty much gets to the point where it's only just writing names in the book. And that's it. That's all that it means to him. And soon it wasn't even just that. It was even people that he was close to that he was starting to write names in the book for. Like, he started to literally detach himself from everyone else.
He was willing to kill to make his quote-unquote vision come true. And to be honest, as great of an well, technically Light is the protagonist of the anime, despite me not agreeing with his motives. He's a bad person, in my opinion, because, some people do agree with what Light was doing, and that's all well and good. Regardless, while Light is the protagonist of story and protagonist of his story and L is the antagonist, I have to say that even though I hate Light, he is a well done character.
Yeah, I agree. And you can actually kind of see that when he loses his memory, intentionally loses his memory, but he loses his memory. And you kind of see him revert back to when he didn't have that god complex and he was just trying to help out the the special forces and trying to track down Kira.
Mm-hmm. And even L.
Yeah.
I have to say, this is one of the only things that bothers me about the second season. Because a lot of people hate on the second season.
I hate the second season, so we'll get to that.
But Light did kind of deteriorate after the first season. I have to say it is very frustrating to have seen it, but I also do still love the second season because I was able to look at it separate from what the first season was supposed to be.
Okay. Yeah, no, I actually, like, in my heart of hearts, Death Note ended mid-season, or at the end of season 1. There is no season 2. Because I felt like the writing, the way that the story was written, which is this mind games between Light and L, and for the listeners who haven't seen or watched Death Note, the two of you that may exist, basically L is this special operative from America sent to figure out who Kira is, which is Light's, what you call it, name, something like that, identity. And so L and Light do team up, and they have like these mind games trying to figure out, who is who. Light's trying to kill L, and L's trying to kill Light, but they mutually are pretending that they don't know each other, as well as working with each other. And the mind games between the two are insane.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so when Light finally wins, I guess spoilers, but it's a podcast, I always say spoilers anyways. When L dies and Light wins, I felt like after that moment, Light's character just didn't click with me. It felt like the mind games were gone. I did not care about Nier or Mello, which were supposed to be the two people that replaced L. And so, I don't know. What do you think about Nier and Mello? Nier and Mello. Keep switching the first letters.
I was not a fan of them to start, especially because I loved L a lot, and it was definitely a blow that he was gone and these people were supposed to replace him. Which, fun fact, I have a fun fact about Nier and Mello for you if you want it.
Go. Okay. Shoot.
This is confirmed by the creator, that, L was supposed to be Nier and Mello's father. They were supposed to be his twin sons. And the reason that didn't go through is because the creator could not imagine L having sex.
I mean, I can't fault him there.
As a fangirl, I will respectfully say that my perspective is different. But
fair enough. Yeah, L is such an interesting character because he's very smart, but he's so socially awkward. And
me too.
I mean, I feel that. It felt like they were trying to give the other orphans Mel or M and N, because that's what they're referred to as, and I felt like they were trying to give him those social awkwardness, and it just didn't click as much as it did for L. At least for me.
The way that I see it, Mello and Nier, which their names were switched, their names were switched. Originally, Mellow was going to be Nier, and Nier was going to be Mellow. And honestly, it would have made a lot more sense. Mellow
Yeah.
was going to be named Mellow because he was chill, and Nier was
Mhm.
going to be named Nier because he was almost at the top but never fully reached the top.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't ask me why I know this stuff. Anyway, I feel like when it comes to Death Note, I do agree on some level that they shouldn't have done a second season, but at the same time, as sloppy as Light was, I love Nier and Mellow because of what they represent, which is, it's kind of like a society trying to come back together. You have people trying to pick up the pieces and trying to remain calm and rational, and you have people who are angry, people who are hurt, people who are trying to figure out and understand what the hell is going on. And especially with Mellow and Nier, I like their contrast to each other. I do think
That's
that
true.
the mistake with Nier that was made is the fact that between Nier and Mellow, which are the two halves of L, essentially, they did put a little bit too much emphasis on what we outwardly saw of L into Nier, and I think that that was a bit of a mistake because people would not stop drawing the comparisons. People not liking Mellow is okay, and it makes sense for them not to like him because, well, he was supposed to be one of the best, and he was angry and emotional, but there's a reason why L never really showed emotion. He shut it off.
Well, yeah. Now I'm getting the two confused, but yeah. Nier's the white-haired one.
Nier is the sheepy boy.
Yeah. I honestly liked Nier a lot more than Mellow. Mellow, though, was real interesting because he convinced the Mafia to go after Light, which is just kind of an interesting move.
Well, when you have someone that smart on your side helping you get away with shit, I'm pretty sure that you would go ahead and try to appease them as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, those are just kind of my thoughts on Nier and Mellow. Why do I keep getting them backwards? Anyways, you have any other thoughts about the second half of the season?
The ending was probably the most satisfying ending for me.
I agree.
Because I hated Light. And seeing Matsuda snap.
I was going to bring that up.
Matsuda is, like, he's so precious. He is precious cinnamon roll when he first starts out. And then everything changes, and it's like, who is this person? Because he freaks out. And he, if I'm not mistaken, he even told Light, he's screaming at Light, you put us in danger, you were willing to let people die, look at what happened to your family. Like, he was freaking out on him because this person who was like a brother to him was willing to let people who he supposedly loved get hurt. And Matsuda is best boy. We can all agree Matsuda is best boy.
And the fact that he just straight up shot Light, which multiple times. So to kind of set up the scene, basically Light and Mellow have kind of been going at it a little bit, and Mellow decides to kind of plant a trap for Light in this warehouse, and Light thinks that he can overcome Nier and outsmart him, and he pretty much lets this goon walk around with the DeathNote, thinking that the goon will take care of everything, and turns out the goon didn't even have the correct DeathNote. He had a fake. And then after Light thinks that he's getting away with it, that the goon is just writing down all the names that were in the warehouse, Light reveals everything in this epic monologue, showing off his god complex, saying like, hey, I am Kira, I'm the person that's doing everything. And that's when Matsura snaps and shoots him.
Yeah. Can I just mention?
Yeah.
This is going to be a little dark and I'm bringing this up because this was a point that was not touched on as much in the anime.
Okay.
Real quick, I need to check the name of the character to be sure. Sayu.
Oh,
Do
yes.
you remember Sayu?
Yeah, it's Light's sister. Adorable sister. I felt bad for her.
Yeah, because he was careless. He didn't
Yeah.
think that anyone would go after his family, and still was willing to put Sayu and his father through hell to get what he wanted. And this is part of why Light is unforgivable for me.
Yeah.
She was kidnapped by the Mafia. What exactly do you think happens with the Mafia?
Yeah. No, I mean, I could only imagine. Like, yeah, going on with just Sayu, like, there were several times where I felt like she was just that pure innocence that always wanted, and for some reason, Light just completely ignored her all the time. It really kind of bugged me.
Even before the Death Note, he seemed to have some sort of disinterest in her, though that's probably because he was an older teenager
Yeah,
and she
and
was
siblings.
younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'd think that he'd at least prioritize family a little bit, but no. In fact, even when his dad was dying, he tried convincing his dad to give him a name so that he could write it down in the Death Note.
He
That
just
was
wanted Mello's name.
yeah.
And the only reason, and this is technically confirmed because of how the Shinigami eyes work. The Shinigami eyes
Yeah.
half a person's lifespan, which
Mhm.
means that the only reason Yorichiro Yagami died that night is because he made that deal with the Shinigami.
I was gonna say we didn't even talk about the Shinigami like Ryuk or Rem. You want to kind of explain their purpose in this whole fiasco?
Okay, so while it's not explained to my knowledge where the Shinigami first originated, they are beings, in Death Note specifically, that they come to be from, if I remember correctly, Ryuk states this, they are known to come from touching and having used a Death Note before. So, that's why Ryuk
Mhm.
is the way he is. And Ryuk is very bored. He
Yes.
feels like everything has gone to just complete nothingness in the realm. He's tired, and he decides to play a little game. The only reason Light got the Death Note was because Ryuk was bored. And
Yes. I love that so much.
yes, and I have to say, even though Ryuk is the reason that so many people died in the grand scheme of things, I do still love him because of apples and because of the fact
Yes.
that I hated the Death Note movie, but I have to give Willem Dafoe credit. He was a good Ryuk.
Mhm.
Anyway, Rem, in contrast to Ryuk, is very emotional, very empathetic. She knows the rules of what Shinigami can and cannot do, and the only reason Light quote unquote wins in the first place is because of Rem's empathy.
Mhm.
Because this is as he said before, spoilers. I'm gonna say this here for spoilers because this is kind of a major
Yeah.
thing. um Misa was not, if I remember, no, it wasn't Misa, I'm sorry. Oh, was it? Was
It's
it Misa that
Misa.
was,
It's
yeah.
Misa.
Misa was supposed to die. She was not supposed to live.
Mhm.
And there was a Shinigami that Rem knew and was friends with that became infatuated with Misa. So when someone tried to murder her, this Shinigami wrote the person's name down so that way she would be saved. The problem being that, well, killing out of selflessness for another person, that is what would kill a Shinigami, and the
Mhm.
human that they saved gained their lifespan. Rem
Yep.
understood how much this person meant to this Shinigami that she considered a friend, and went to the human world to try to help her and try to guide her. That is why Rem is with Misa. It sucks that Rem was emotionally manipulated, especially because Rem was such a good character. But at the same
Really?
time,
I kind of
yeah.
disagree with that.
Really?
I thought she was garbage.
Really?
She annoyed me so much.
Misa annoyed the hell out of me, but Rem was wonderful.
Oh, sorry. Misa annoyed me. Okay, I think that's where we're.
I hated Misa.
Sorry. Yeah. Rem's cool. For some reason, I thought that last statement you said, my brain was like, Misa's annoying.
Yeah, Misa is hell of annoying. I cannot stand her. And I'm gonna say this real quick. On some level, I do understand where she's coming from. Liking a person that is terrible because of an emotional attachment you have to them for whatever reason. Yes, he did kill the person that had killed her parents. And yes, it's going to be emotionally a roller coaster overall. So her being attached to Light is not the problem that I have. I have a problem with him for being abusive to her. I have a problem with her for generally being annoying. But I don't blame her for being attached to him.
No, although it did kind of surprise me that she remained attached to him. Like that was kind of what was getting to me, was like she became so infatuated with him, where maybe it's like Stockholm syndrome, but
I would say so, because he is good at manipulating. And he knows how to get what he wants.
yeah.
He knows how to make sure that people stay under his grip. And as much as I hate him, I gotta give him credit. He's smart.
Yeah. And like though how she got figured out was, I mean, she can't be Light's intelligent, and part of me is trying to grapple with that, is that not everyone in the world can be as intelligent as Light or L. And she tried being Kira to get found out, and she let loose, like she had DNA, like her hair stuck to a videotape, and that's how they found her. So.
And even Light was like, bitch, you're dumb.
Yeah, but I don't. At one point though, Light literally tried keeping her under house arrest, practically, because that was just like, you got to stay out of society or you keep screwing things up for me. I don't know. I'm
also going to, like, I'm gonna mention this.
Yeah.
And this is a darker topic. Did you ever watch the end credits of the last episode all the way through?
I think I have, but it's been years since I've seen Death Note, so I don't quite remember. Why don't you explain?
There is a theory. It is heavily implied, and thus it created a very plausible theory within Death Note that at the end of the second season, Misa committed suicide because of the fact that Light was gone. And the theory goes a bit deeper than that, though this is not canon and there isn't evidence to really suggest this. But this is a cool little fan theory that goes along with the implication of the fact that she died. The theory is that Light did get her pregnant and that she waited to have the child because she wouldn't kill his child, and then committed suicide. The theory then stating that because the child is an orphan and a genius, would end up at Whammy's house. And I think that that's a really cool concept, but it is not canon. And as such, I shall live with my own alternate universes in my mind.
Hey, everyone's got to have that. So, wasn't it Misa that set herself on fire in a church, or was that...
no, that was
Kiyomi.
Kiyomi? Was it Kiyomi or Kyoko? I think it was Kiyomi. You're right, it's Kiyomi.
I wrote down all the
Kiyomi
names. Yeah.
Kiyomi was the one that Mello kidnapped, and honestly, this is why I love Mello. Mello put the good before his dreams. He put his life on the line knowing he would die, and I respect the hell out of that. Also, that burn mark looks great.
Yeah, very, very cool. But yeah, she just kind of turned into another pawn for Light. Although I almost understood a lot more. Just kind of because she became an anchor and she was becoming a voice. So it was more like he used her more as a pawn. and it didn't. I didn't feel like there was very much of the emotional game that he had with Misa.
Oh yeah. Honestly, the emotional games he played with Misa really did bother me,
Mm-hmm.
especially with some of the stuff that I've been through. And it's part of why I do have problems with Misa overall as a character, but I do understand where they come from. And I do think that despite Misa being absolutely terrible overall to especially watch for what she's supposed to be, it is a accurate portrayal of what would happen if someone was trapped in such a toxic, abusive relationship, which is what that is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It really is. I mean, she literally says like, "Hey, use me however you want." Which when she said that, I was just screaming on the inside. Ed Light's like, "Yeah, I'll use you, but I'm also gonna date some other girls, and we're gonna just keep this on the down low."
That's not abusive.
No, it's not at all. So it really kind of makes me wonder. It's like, who is the hero of the story? Who do you think is the hero? Because we sometimes think protagonist is the hero, but I don't think
The
it's in this one.
protagonist, the protagonist, if I'm not mistaken, the protagonist is just the main character that we see reaching their goal,
Yeah.
and the antagonist is who opposes them.
Yeah.
So you're right. The protagonist is not technically a hero, especially since Light's ultimate goal stops being to rid the world of people who are bad and is essentially becoming a god.
Mm-hmm.
But even more than that, I have to say, if Light is a villain protagonist, then the hero was initially going to be L.
I
But
agree.
because Light is the protagonist, and keep in mind everything that we've talked about so far, L ended up dying. So
Mm-hmm.
there had to be other heroes, other potential heroes, just like, when the protagonist is a good guy, there are other potential villains. You have Nier, you have Mello, and while Matsuda is the one that ended up taking the shots, I think we can both agree in the end Ryuk is the hero, because while Ryuk was watching from the sidelines and would occasionally give Light a heads up on someone watching him,
Mm-hmm.
Ryuk wasn't on Light's side. Ryuk made it very clear that he wasn't on anyone's side, and that the moment he became bored, Light would be dead. And oh boy, did he follow up on
Oh
that.
yes. That is definitely like the whole warehouse scene for the most part I hated up until like Matsura shot Lights, but then after that, like the last 5 minutes, I thought was golden, with Ryuk just writing his name on the death notes, and apparently that means that Light can neither go to heaven nor hell. He just goes nowhere.
Because Light touched the Death Note in the first place, he wouldn't go to either one. But
Mm-hmm.
getting killed by a Shinigami might have also been a factor. I do agree with, like, a lot of people say it's a theory, and it's not a theory because of the fact that Ryuk stated this at the beginning of the show. But at the end, they show Ryuk talking to a new Shinigami with a school uniform tie around his head, talking to them about the
Mm-hmm.
realm and how they were going to love it there, and if they were bored, what they could do about it, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, it's a theory that that's Light. It's like, no, that is Light. That is
Yes.
Light.
That's so cool. I like that just whole dynamic where he Light's pretty much forced to spend eternity just like Ryuk and everyone else just sitting on the sidelines doing nothing. It's kind
Yep.
of like just punishment in a way, because I think for a while he's like, I'm going to hell. I don't care. So it's
Yep.
like not even giving him what he wants.
Exactly. Especially because Ryuk relishes in not being bored, but what do you think is going to eventually happen in situations like these when you don't really have anything to occupy you? You're gonna be bored and you're gonna be
Mm-hmm.
stuck there for the rest of your life, and oh boy, are you going to hate it.
Yeah, in fact, I think at the very beginning we even see some Shinigami just waste away because they had nothing to do.
They would play cards.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's that would get boring after a while. So pros to Ryuk to just saying, "Screw this! I'm gonna mess with some stuff." So I love the whole potato chip scene. That
Yes.
it's super important because like Light is looking on his phone, and his phone is in a potato chip bag with the news on, and so while Light or L is spying on Light, L thinks that Light's just doing homework, while Light's really just writing names in the Death Note. But while all that is happening, and epic music is going, and Light's saying, "And then I take a chip, and then I eat it."
Yes. And
Ryuk
I
is
think
doing handstands.
Ryuk is freaking the hell out because he doesn't have his apple fix.
Yes. But yeah, just a.
Actually, I think that's another thing that the show did really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of those things where I don't know how to explain it, but like Ryuk was such a strong contrast for what he was supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's because they wanted to take the attention off of Light and L.
Yeah. Well, it kind of gives me the whole theme of like the humans are the real devils type deal. I'm trying to remember if Shinigami actually means devil or demon in Japanese. It's something along those lines, but yeah, it's that whole idea of like Light is the one putting names in. He's the one killing people. Granted, through Ryuk's book, and Ryuk's just kind of sitting there spazzing out because he doesn't have an apple. Like he's the goofy character.
Yeah, they take attention off of him being
Mm-hmm.
so important and so serious in what he represents. And I think they do that on purpose. Also, I looked it up. Shinigami, literally death god or death spirit, are gods or supernatural spirits that invite humans towards death in certain aspects of Japanese religion and culture. Shinigami have been described as monsters, helpers, and creatures of darkness. Shinigami are used for tales and religions in Japanese culture. So, from what I understand, they are not necessarily devils. They
Mm-hmm.
can be described as devils, but are typically considered gods. Granted, I don't know a lot about Japanese culture, so it's
Yeah.
possible that for them, there are gods that are quote unquote evil, and as such, where we might consider them devils, they would still be considered of a god status. Again, I could be
Mm-hmm.
wrong on that. I am not speaking for the Japanese culture. That is not what I do.
Yeah. It almost sounds more like they have like the Grim Reaper role, or they're just more of a person that guides people after death. I don't know.
Potentially.
I might be oversimplifying that a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. So you talked about how you liked some of the themes in Death Note. What are some themes that you can kind of think of that you just like really like?
I have to say, I think that one of the biggest themes that I liked was being in the perspective of Light, that theme of power going to your head. You don't want it to go to your head. You can be a monster too. You know, the road is paved. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, kind of a thing. I loved that entire contrast with someone like L. I think that another theme that I absolutely loved was the. Sorry, like I said, I'm chewing gum.
No, you're good.
I think that another one that I absolutely love would have to be the when it came to L, the idea that like you see this contrast between Light and L and how subjective, because I'm gonna say this, like Light points it out that in a classroom, right, if you're asked, is killing people bad, you would openly say, yes, killing people is bad, because you have people watching you and you have people judging you. But online, you could make exceptions and such. And I think that that is a testament to how subject morals can be. Because while I definitely agree with death to certain types of
Yeah.
criminals. I'm not going to say what. I am a very violent person in some aspects. That doesn't mean that all criminals deserve to die. However, some people might have a different idea of that moral, and just because it's against the law doesn't necessarily mean that we are inherently right or wrong. We have the laws to help keep us in check, but overall, we don't have any specific rule book outside of our laws that say, yes, this is good, yes, this is bad. And that gets into the fact that, do you remember, I think it was the second episode, where L baits out Light? And they're
Yes.
talking, and they both say at the same time, I am justice.
Oh, I
That
don't remember that part, but yeah, that's when they're in like the graduation ceremony, if I remember correctly.
No, this
No.
was when this was when Light was first writing the names, and Elle had called in a decoy who was going to be
Oh,
sentenced to
it's
death
that. Yeah,
anyway.
that scene, and the whole
Yes.
idea was like Lights or L's like, yes, I'm doing this whole worldwide broadcast, but he really did it in Kyoto.
The region that
Yeah.
Light lived in, so that way he could be sure where he needed to look for Kira.
Mm-hmm. That was a really cool move there. I really like that idea. Just
Ella's Bay.
yeah. Well, it's also kind of dark if you think about it. He literally put a dude up to die.
I mean, it's dark, but I think that the way, and this is why morals are subjective, but I feel like if Elle had any way to look at it, especially since he thinks logically, it would be this way. This man has already been sentenced to death. No matter what, he's going to die. That's not going to change. So if he gets killed by someone in, if he gets killed by someone here, that just means that he dies a little earlier. I don't believe Elle would have put someone innocent up there, and he did
Yeah.
state that this person was, set to die. I think that it is definitely a bit morbid to end someone's life earlier than it needs to, but I can understand why, again, this is where morals are subjective. It was for the greater good. Some people might look at what I just said and think that I'm condoning murder or think that I'm putting one life down against another, but no. From an objective standpoint, without the emotional cost of the idea that murder is wrong, which, in my
Yeah.
opinion, it is, don't get me wrong, my morals are that it's wrong, but in this instance, someone dying earlier in order to figure out where the world's most serial and dangerous killer is not necessarily the biggest price to pay.
And I think that's where like the whole social like what was I saying? The whole how awkward L is, it's coming from this basis where he thinks pretty much only logically.
I
And
mean,
yeah, no, go ahead.
yeah. Well, another instance we see of L only thinking logically comes from the fact that when he saw the name Shinigami, he freaked out because his logical mind couldn't comprehend the fact that something like a god of death could exist. And of course, that would cause him panic because that is not something that can be controlled, and that is not something that can be interpreted with logic and reason. I have to say, Elle is actually one of the most interesting characters because that is the only time that Elle has ever freaked out or acted extremely weird, even for him. The second instance of him acting extremely weird, even for Elle standards, being when he was standing on the rooftop in the rain, like he was trying to invite Light out to go and do some homosexual dancing. But I
Yeah.
digress.
Well, they're the way that they were acting with each other, maybe.
Yeah, there was some weird homo tension there, but
Yeah. So, what do you think of just how Light's master plan to finally kind of evade L and pretty much bring him down? Like that whole scenario of like just exchanging the notebooks that he forgets. And it all started with Misa getting captured.
Honestly, I'm not sure. like, sorry, when it comes to it, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think without bias because I don't like Light.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think that he did put. There was a lot of coincidences. Like, there was a lot of things that he foresaw that, like, several factors may not have instigated. I don't know. It just seemed very precise.
It was definitely very, very, interesting. But Light did test to be the smartest kid in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And while I don't like going to stereotypes in this kind of situation, especially for the time around 2000, yeah, because the
Yeah.
anime came out in 2006, which means the
Mm-hmm.
manga was made before that. Especially at that time, Asian culture was said to be a lot more intelligence based than here in the Americas. So, for Light to be the top student somewhere like Japan, where they are stereotypically strict on such matters, then that would mean that he is the smartest person in the world. And this is confirmed when he has to go up against L, and L is supposed to be the smartest detective in the world. Now, I'm not trying to say that all Japanese
Mm-hmm.
parents are strict, and I'm not trying to say that the Japanese culture as a whole is strict with grades. I'm just saying that based on the stereotypes, if we apply those to the anime and the manga, it makes sense for Light to be in such a position where he would be intelligent enough to pull something like that off. Granted, that does not entirely explain why he got so sloppy after the fact, especially
Yeah.
considering, and I did have this debate with a good few friends who also had the same issue you did with the second season. They firmly believe that when it came to Light, it was very sloppy and unlike him, and that even though it was just a few years without having that competition, he shouldn't have been so careless and should have still been able to see what the faults were. Um, his plan to take down L
Mm-hmm.
was precise, and I think part of it is because him and L being on the same level of intelligence meant that they were equal threats to each other and would be able to read each other better. Granted, I do think that it is a bit of a plot device that they knew exactly what the other would do, because,
Yeah.
realistically, that's not how that would work. But at the same time, that is still a really cool thing to keep in mind when it comes to looking at L and Light in the sense of why were they able to do what they did. I am a bit frustrated at some points, more in the fact that if it wasn't for the fact that the Kira task force was so biased towards Light, L would have been able to get what he needed done.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to sound terrible, but if the task force hadn't been biased towards Light, they wouldn't have been so objectory
Yeah.
to a lot of the things that L wanted to do and felt would be necessary. By the time they were willing to go through with it, it was too late because Light couldn't be caught out by anything. Even more than that, while L didn't
Mm-hmm.
have evidence, the only person who ever truly even remotely believed him was Aizawa, and that's why I have a lot of respect for Aizawa as a
Yes.
character come the second season.
Yeah, mostly when he starts turning on Light as well and working with Nier.
Yeah, because it's like something's not right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like Light's biggest downfall is the fact that he wasn't able to pin anything on anyone when he needed to. Now that might sound really, really dumb, but here's how I put it. If Light had been able to pin something like the Kira situation on Masuda or someone else the time that L had been gone, it would be extremely easy to get away with something like that and still be able to do what he wanted to do because Light would have been smart enough to pull something like that off. Especially
Mm-hmm.
because the DeathNote does allow you to space out deaths, and while you can create different forms of death within possibility, that means that if Light had pinned it on someone else in the end instead of trying to keep everything for himself, he would have won fully.
Yeah.
He would have had every opportunity of winning, and that is the main thing. bothers me, because a lot of people seem to forget that the Death Note isn't just heart attacks. That's the most simplistic way to go about it. But what about when Light went on the bus with that date with
Yeah.
the FBI agent in the back? That person had a very elaborate, thought out plan as to how he was going to be killed, but for some reason we don't see that again for a while, and that's just an issue that I have overall. I will say that Light also could have completely been cleared if he hadn't gone after Ray Penber in the very beginning, sex god Ray Penber.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that the only reason suspicion was still on him is the fact that he and the others died. If he'd left it alone, he would have been fine, and Elle would have moved on to someone else. But Light had a compulsion to let people know that he was still in power, and that was the problem. He
Yeah.
was so obsessed with being in control that it was his downfall from the very beginning, and his cockiness just happened to be his downfall in the end. I think that that's really dumb. Again, nothing really explains why he went off the rails second season, but I digress.
Yeah. So, yeah, that, I mean, you put it really, really well there. I don't have anything to say against that. Like, I agree completely. Light had plenty of opportunities there, and yeah, I think that was really what bugged me the most, was just that it felt like he got dumbed down. And
Well, you know what would have been really messed up and cool?
yeah.
What if he had been smart enough? Because Matsuda always seemed like the innocent one, but Matsuda was also the person to Light, and for a while was trying to get on L's good side because, you know, cinnamon roll wannabe good boy. But consider, like, for example, like, the fact that, you know, he could have pinned that on Matsuda, and he could have done something against Matsuda, and he didn't. He was dumb. It's something where it's like, you could have pinned it on Matsuda and it would have made perfect sense because of this, that, and the other. But that would have been such a cool twist if it had happened, but I would have been so angry if it did happen because my baby.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Instead, what he did was, like, he started pinning it on, like, random people. Like, he tried pinning it on, like, this business typhoon that worked a little bit and then didn't. And as well as just, like, other things. Yeah, that's pretty much just been my biggest gripe with the second season, was, like, it just felt like he got dumbed down, and I couldn't really handle it after that.
Yeah, because it's like, well, hold on.
Go on.
Are you saying that it's not the Death Note that you used to know?
I guess not. Nice. All right, so you also mentioned earlier about there being some underrated concepts. Is there any of them that you haven't mentioned that you want to bring up?
Honestly, this is a concept that I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and I'm gonna touch on it more here now.
Yeah.
See, I made it very clear beforehand, I do not like Misa. I think she is very annoying. Don't get me started on the dub voice actress. I know she was going for what fit the character, and trust me, it fit the character annoyingly well. However, while I hate Misa, I do understand where she's coming from. I think the concept of, and this is gonna sound weird, the concept of Light's existence as a whole, as an evil protagonist, in my mind, evil protagonist, was an amazing concept that I do not feel enough people really try to expand on in other works.
Yeah.
You have stuff like My Hero Academia, and you have stuff like Black Clover, and while those are good in their own right, do not get me wrong, it definitely is not on the same weight with having the protagonist, the main character, being so evil and full of themselves. I do feel for Misa. I want to look at her psychology for a minute and explore the concept of, yes, a useless female character, but a useless female character because of legitimate reasons. Misa has made note of the fact that she's not as smart as Light. Though she was smart enough to get his attention, it can be inferred that she got that from Rem's help. Overall, I do feel bad for her because of the fact that well, as we talked about earlier, she was abused.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, it's kind of like a Stockholm Syndrome situation. I partially feel for her because, like I mentioned earlier, I know what it's like to be in that position where you want to believe in someone and you want to trust someone, and they did something really good for you, so you don't want to let them go. And while she did become obsessed to an unhealthy point, who did she have? Literally, after
Yeah.
Rem died, who did she have to go to? Who was going to save her from this person that she didn't even realize was evil? He was using her. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't care about her. And I think the moment that I decided that he was unredeemable to me had nothing to do with Elle, but the fact that when she was excited because she wanted to be with him and she was trying to be affectionate with him, albeit by tackling him to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
he said that he had never wanted to smack a woman so much. And as much as I understand how annoying she was, don't get me wrong, someone trying to show you their affection and someone
Yeah.
trying to love you, to say that about that, it's kind of sickening to me, because it's like, this person's willing to do anything for you. And while no, you don't have to treat them as a god, and you're welcome to be uncomfortable, and yes, she's annoying, you can't just sit here and say, oh, well, I want to hit her, when she's not doing anything wrong at all. She
No.
just wants to be close to you. And I'm sorry, it's one of those things where it's like I said earlier, I think that her psychology is definitely very interesting because of the fact
Yeah.
that she's the most human out of all of them, and yet she's the most fooled out of all of them. Some people argue it's Light's family because Sayu and
Mm-hmm.
Yorichiri.
Yeah, it's Sorchiro. Are you talking about his father?
Sorichiro, yeah, I'm dumb.
Sorchiro. Yeah.
Sorichiro, Sayu, and his mother, it can be argued that they were the most fooled. But look at Misa. She spent the most time with Light, thinking that he was a great person despite knowing what he did, because he was taking advantage of her and the love that she had for him. All she wanted was to make him happy. And while, yeah, it's pathetic on
Mm-hmm.
some level and it's really annoying, like I said, I feel bad for her. Like, really think about being in that position. Hell, while I've never been with someone, I haven't really been with many people, but like, while I haven't
Same.
had interest or attachment to someone like Light in such a negative capacity, well, with them being the negative capacity,
Mm-hmm.
I've still had attachments to people who weren't good for me because I wanted to make them happy and because I wanted to do the best that I could to hold on to that connection because of good things they may have done for me in the past, or something that I
Mm-hmm.
considered, adoration worthy. And I think the thing that's so sickening about Light in this is the fact that, and yes, I'm not saying this is beneath him or that I expected it to be beneath him, because I really didn't. I saw he was an asshole from the start, but the fact that he was still willing to manipulate and use a girl as if she was nothing but an object to him really does bother me, especially because at her core, Misa is a kind person.
Mm-hmm.
She's a brat and she's annoying, but she does have a good heart. She's childish because she never really had a chance to, and she's
Yes.
innocent despite not being innocent.
Yes, and she's a celebrity as well. I mean, that's something that we haven't even really factored in, is the fact that she kind of grew up with this kind of fame culture where uh, she she's expected to, like, people love and adore her, and that's pretty much all she ever had growing up because her parents died, and just kind of that detachment with her becoming a celebrity. It
Exactly.
can it in a way, her becoming a celebrity with people loving her made her more lonely. And here's Light, someone who she saw as like a hero, and like in her eyes he was a hero to her and kind of like a celebrity to her, and so she wanted to go and meet that person, and she kind of saw what his true colors were.
But when you're desperate to hold on to something, when you're desperate to hold on to some form of love, it really is hard to break out of.
Yeah.
I do have respect for her because of one thing and one thing alone.
Mm-hmm.
She never betrayed him. And while I have to say it is kind of annoying that she never light, most victims of abuse don't. They don't see that something's wrong because they don't understand what's wrong in the first place. They don't realize they're being abused, and that's very common among abuse victims.
Mm-hmm.
But with her, I have to respect her loyalty to him, because even though she might not have seen through what he was doing, I'd have respect for her either way. If she pulled away from him and she became her own person and she became stronger, I'd have respect for her. But even though she didn't, she was still loyal to him. She didn't betray him. She wasn't trying to do anything behind his back, and I also respect that. Now I'm going to mention something that really annoys me.
Go ahead.
The Death Note movie was absolutely terrible, even if you look at it from away the scope. Like, even if you look at it separate from the anime, it was terrible. The only good thing about that movie, Willem Dafoe.
I was gonna say I haven't seen it, but that's what I've gathered.
Don't. Unless you're ready for a bunch of stupid, don't.
Yeah, I don't plan on it. Like, really, I've seen like the beginning of like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood live action, so thought that was awful as well. And just actually, I guess it's just Full Metal Alchemist, but just any live action adaptation just doesn't go well.
Exactly. It's like it's so ridiculous. I think the thing that I hated the most was the fact that there are some amazing concepts in the movie that could have been done so much better. Like Light actually being a protagonist and a good guy in some sense. And, Misa or, Mina being, manipulative and in control. Those were amazing concepts that did not do nearly as well as they should have because the writing was kind of botched there. I'm not mad because it was different and inaccurate to the anime. I'm mad because what they tried to do with it was not done well. I will say, and this is going to sound weird, a lot of people were upset about L's actor being black. I'm going to say this firmly. I think that the actor was a great choice and did L justice the best that he could.
Okay. Like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't give any opinion whatsoever. But you kind of said something that kind of made me wonder a little bit. What if Misa in the anime was a little bit more manipulative? Like, she doesn't necessarily need to be on the intelligent level as Light and L, but what if she had some kind of special quirk? Do you think that would change her character for the better, or do you think that her being that most human character is the more fitting?
I feel like her being the most human character is more fitting, but I don't think that it would ruin things if she had been able to have her own sense of self in having her own little quirk. I don't think that it would have done any bad necessarily. I think that it would have made her a lot more likable, but the fact of the matter is that with how she is being so in the spotlight, her not having that special quirk wasn't a detriment to her either. Her personality overall still would have been annoying either way. Let's be real about that.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So the only other character we really haven't talked about and that I want to bring up is Naomi Misura. She's the female FBI agent that started
Ray
tracking
Penber's wife.
Yes, that started tracking down Light. So what do you think about her?
She herself was not a disappointment, but the fact that she was killed off so early was, because she could have provided a very interesting aspect, especially because being an avid fan of Death Note and being as rabid as I was as a teenager, I got the book Death Note Another Note, in which Naomi Misura is the head of an investigation against Bibi beyond birthday, who was born with Shinigami eyes, and L is trying to hunt him down. And honestly,
Wow.
it was so interesting because BB even disguised himself as L, because
Mm-hmm.
B was on such a high intelligence level that he was very close, if not the same as L. And Naomi was the only one who figured him out, if I remember correctly. But she had so much potential as a character, and I am very, 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 very disappointed that she died so early.
I agree.
Um,
Like, just the thought that she is just another party in this. It's just someone else to throw a wrench into everyone's plans. Like, she had so much potential, and instead, Light. How he got rid of her by the fact that Ryuk chuckled when she gave her fake name. And
exactly.
so and in the end, it's like, what did she do to the plot?
I understand part of why she reacted the way she did, but it kind of feels like that's what that felt like with her. Unlike Nier and Mello, where there was a reason, even if it was kind of infuriating, with her it was like there was no reason other than to just have another person to kill off. Especially because it's not like this emotionally affected L. If it had emotionally affected L, I could see it, because as L stated, even in the anime, he remembered her from her work on the LABB murder
Mm-hmm.
case. So but if she'd had more of an emotional impact, I could see bringing her in and then killing her off like they did, especially with how fast paced the anime was at the time. But
Yeah.
they didn't do nearly as much with her as they could have. I agree that her being a third party against Light could have been really cool. The only backfire being that it probably would have resulted in things ending sooner, since Naomi, even if she worked on her own separate from L, because, another option was just walk away and she couldn't get contact with them,
Yeah.
it would also be, eventually they would come together, they would compile their evidence, and let's just say that, well, I feel like the task force would have turned on Light a lot sooner if Naomi had been there, because having two objective parties speaking on the same level about the same person would have made more of a difference, especially
Yeah.
when one of them has the same feelings. Like, Naomi and Elle are two different people. Naomi might
Mm-hmm.
not be as smart as Elle, but she's definitely up there. And the fact that she would be essentially saying the same thing, providing her own evidence from her experiences with him, it's definitely quite interesting that, they probably would have believed them at that point. Granted, I feel like Light knew that because, you know, if he did, I feel like he knew that, and that's why she had to be taken out, because, oh, if she went to them with the evidence, woe is me, I'll be locked up, then don't do illegal things.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, my patience for Light is non-existent.
I get that. I get that. All right. So we're at the hour mark. So is there anything you kind of want to mention? Any final thoughts?
I definitely feel like if you're looking for an anime that's not really as action based, has a bit of comedy, definitely has a mystery factor, I would definitely recommend checking Death Note out. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite anime ever, and I definitely have to thank you. Thank you for having
No,
me on.
no problem.
I would definitely love to come back at some point and talk about another anime with you. It's been really fun discussing. I'm sorry for talking over you so much. I just get
Oh
really
no!
enthusiastic.
Honestly, like I've been editing my own videos, and I noticed that I talk a lot. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna shut up this time. And you seem to be really passionate about what you were talking about, so I loved it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I do have some socials. I make raps and songs on anime.
Ooh, you cut out there.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, I heard raps and socials on anime.
Yeah, I make raps and songs on anime, and want to check me out, you can search up Volcar-OHNO with a dash in between the R and the O, and you should be
Mm-hmm.
able to find me. And I welcome you. Um, again, thank you so much for having me. I would love to spend more time with you. If you play Dead by Daylight or Phasmophobia or any of that, let me know. I would love to invite you to my server.
All right, I might have to get those games then eventually.
They're pretty cheap right now, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, keep that in mind. And yeah.
All right, well, with all that being said, I'm the Anime Overanalyst, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.
Talking Nerdcore, talking Nerdcore today. We're talking Nerdcore.